Background information, I originally from Mason City, grew up there. Father was at the Culligan dealership up there, so I don't know if that had anything to do with my interest in physics and chemistry. Mostly I was carrying tanks and bags of salt and doing plumbing, so as jobs early on. But came down to Iowa State for physics in '68, got my bachelor's here. It was a good experience, enjoyed Ames a lot. I got married while I was here, met my wife in chemistry class, which was, I won't make any jokes about that. After that, actually we went and traveled, hitchhiked for about 6 months to get some experience, seeing other places. Came back to the United States and actually moved down to Houston. Thought I'd see what it was like to be warm. I got a job at Texas Instruments, working in the integrated circuit fab there, where they were working miracles at that time. Things were, we were just getting online to 1K RAM, so you need to think of and trying to bring on the 4K RAM. That was the big deal. So you know how long ago that was. Found out in Houston there are a lot worse things in the world than being cold. And since then, it was an effort and feel, okay, how do I get back to Ames? So came back to grad school in Ames, got a PhD, and Cindy started working on her accounting at that time. So we spent some while more in school, enjoyed a lot, but with a PhD in physics, there weren't a lot of opportunities in Ames. So I went off again, probably went out to Colorado, worked at the Solar Energy Research Institute, and then up to 3M. My timing wasn't great. I took a job at the Solar Energy Research Institute, which is a national lab, 4 days before Ronald Reagan was elected president, and he was not really in favor of any sort of solar energy, so that lab got cut drastically immediately after I got there. And while our group survived, it was so political and couldn't get much done, so going to 3M labs up in the Twin Cities was very good. Then had an opportunity later, started developing actually the technology and the thin film solar modules that we make here at 3M. 3M decided not to commercialize it. So one of my partners and I came down here and started out with Thin Film Technologies, figuring we'd put a lot of effort in to try and make this technology work. We'd give it that last try and see if we could get it out into the market and have it available for people to use. It's had its ups and downs. There were some times in there that were doubtful. In the early years, it was really exciting stuff, and we had really good relations with the university, and they gave us some incubator space and helped us a lot, and it was essential to our getting off the ground. But there were times, a year or two at a time, when nobody was getting paid and people working side jobs, and luckily my wife was teaching at the university, so she kept food on our table, and actually some of the money went back. We kind of pooled money within the group to make sure everybody had what they needed to survive. And came back out of it and have been expanding. Actually, we were starting to expand pretty fast when that last crash happened, and another little bit of a rough time, but it's coming back and growing pretty well now. It's been a struggle. Haven't done a lot in communities related service type things since the boys were smaller, did scouts and school stuff and such. And getting to the point where I should be doing some of that. I should be spend a little more time there, and I have a little more time to spend now. We're not on the edge of surviving. And I know when my father died a couple of years ago, I looked at what he contributed and did up in Mason City and thinking, I'm coming up short on my contributions. So It's time to start working a little more along those lines, one way or another. This is one of the ways to do it. I've had a fair bit of interaction in the last few years in city activities. Actually, if I had the nerve, I'd probably look for school board, but I have immense respect for the people that serve on that, but I don't think I could do that. Honestly, not the city council's that much easier, but there is a difference, and I think I have some expertise that could be of benefit on city council and some decision-making capabilities and experience and bent that would complement what's on there already. So there I am.
All right. Well, I had a few questions for you as well. My first one is about the city's 1% local option sales tax. Per state law, 60% must go for property tax relief and 40% to community betterment projects. Past city councils have debated whether some of that 40% should be used to fund supplies and programs, which are usually assumed to be a regular function of the city department, or whether the entire 40% should be used only for new or offshoot programs. So I'm curious kind of if you believe Ames should use its local option sales tax community betterment funds.
Yeah, community betterment's a pretty broad term. That better be with the majority of what they're doing. So technically, I suppose it would fit in, and if it really does focus on that. Now, I don't know what the decisions in the split is. I have to say that up front. I wouldn't. I have no problem with the idea of spending that on things that would definitely be community betterment that are ongoing projects rather than initiating new projects. I haven't heard any complaints about that particularly. That it's being misspent. Though I haven't looked exactly at the programs that it is going for.
Cyrite is running a $250,000 deficit on general service and about $17,000 to contract out required services with Heartland Senior Services. Do you believe that it's essential for Cyrite to offer citywide services, and how should Cyrite handle the disparity between revenue and demand for service?
I do believe broad services are important on Cyrite. I really do. And the problem with the bus system, if you start cutting down, or any other transportation system, you start cutting around the edges, then you lose the feeders. People have to find other ways to deal with those lost areas, and your other lines suffer also. So I do think broad service is important. I guess I haven't seen the numbers on ridership in different areas. I know the buses I see frequently are running pretty full, but that's certain times of day. So I do think it's important that those services be offered. How that works out in the budgeting process, I'm mad. And not having been through one, I imagine that's a struggle trying to balance resources and expenditures when it comes to the annual budget cycle and figuring out how you're going to allocate it. But I do think transportation is important. I don't like spend time sitting riding in the car to begin with, but the idea of driving individual cars as much as I do and others do. Ames is more difficult. It's a small town. It's not like it's a dense city with very high population, so you're forced to do more of that. If any way we can find alternative methods of transport and make it more effective, I really strongly believe that we should be doing that. But again, the budgetary constraints at this point, I haven't seen that round of discussions and arguments. I have no doubt that that's what